The divorce papers sat on the kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Next to them, Caleb's handwriting mocked me from a pale yellow post-it note: "I need solitude to find myself. Don't try to contact me. I'm sorry." 15 years of marriage reduced to 23 words. I picked up the note, crumpled it, then smoothed it out again. The words hadn't changed. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, muscle memory taking over as I dialed his number. "The number you have reached is no longer in service." Of course. He'd thought of everything. I grabbed the bottle of Cabernet we'd been saving for our anniversary next month, uncorked it, and poured myself a generous glass. The rich liquid caught the afternoon light streaming through my kitchen window. Our wedding photo still hung on the wall, his academic regalia making him look distinguished, important. Professor Caleb Thompson, beloved educator, devoted husband. What a crock of shit. My phone buzzed. Natalie's name flashed on the screen. "You're late for drinks," she said. "Everything okay?" He left. The words felt foreign in my mouth. Caleb left. What? I'm coming over. No, I'll come to you. I need to get out of this house. 20 minutes later, I walked into O'Malley's. Natalie waved from our usual corner booth, her face etched with concern. I dropped into the seat across from her, sliding the divorce papers onto the sticky table. "Jesus Christ," she whispered, flipping through the pages. "No warning. Nothing. Just a post-it note. Like I'm a reminder on his fucking calendar." The waitress appeared. "Your usual, Vera. Double tonight, Rosa." "Actually, make it 2 doubles." Rosa's eyes darted between me and the papers on the table. "Coming right up, honey." Natalie reached across and squeezed my hand. "What are you going to do?" "Sign them, I guess. What choice do I have?" I pulled my hand away, needing the distance. 15 years, Nat. 15 years and he couldn't even say goodbye to my face. There has to be more to this. People don't just. Apparently, they do. I caught Rosa's eye and mouthed, "Thank you," as she set down our drinks. You know what the worst part is? I keep thinking about last week, when he insisted on making dinner. He seemed so normal. Happy, even. Was he planning this the whole time? Just going through the motions? Maybe he's having some kind of breakdown. Remember when Jeff's brother suddenly joined that commune in Oregon? This is different. I took a long sip of whiskey, letting it burn. Caleb's too calculated for that. Too controlled. This isn't impulsive, he planned this. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Vera Thompson?" A young woman's voice, hesitant but determined. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Jasmine. I used to be one of your husband's students. We need to talk. It's important." Something in her tone made my stomach clench. "About what?" "Not over the phone. Could we meet somewhere? Tomorrow maybe." I looked at Natalie, who was watching me with raised eyebrows. "Tomorrow at noon. There's a coffee shop called Bean there on 5th Street. I know it. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. And I'm sorry." The line went dead. "Who was that?" Natalie asked. "One of Caleb's former students." I drained my glass. "She says we need to talk." "About what?" "I don't know." I stared at the divorce papers, at his precise signature at the bottom. "But I have a feeling I'm about to find out why my husband really left." Rosa appeared with fresh drinks, her dark eyes full of sympathy. "On the house, honey. You look like you need it." I didn't argue. Tomorrow would bring answers, but tonight? Tonight I would let myself fall apart, surrounded by the only two people who hadn't abandoned me yet. The hangover hit me like a sledgehammer as I walked into the dental clinic. Rosa's eyes followed me from behind the reception desk, her usual morning snark replaced by something softer. Pity. God, I hated pity. Dr. Matthews wants to see you in his office, she said quietly. Before your first patient. Perfect. Just what I needed before meeting Jasmine at noon, a lecture from my boss about keeping my personal life from affecting my work. As if I had any control over that now. I found him reviewing charts, his reading glasses perched on the edge of his nose. Vera, close the door, please. If this is about yesterday. Caleb called. He removed his glasses, polishing them with his tie. He's requested a leave of absence from the university. Indefinite. He mentioned your situation. My stomach lurched. Of course he'd called my boss before me. Damage control. Always the professor, always 3 steps ahead. I appreciate your concern, Dr. Matthews, but take the week off. Paid leave. Sort things out. I'd rather work. He sighed, that paternal look I'd always hated creeping across his face. The university board is meeting today. There are rumors, Vera. About Caleb. About certain improprieties. The room tilted slightly. What kind of improprieties? Nothing concrete. But given your position here, and our connection to the university's dental program. He spread his hands. Take the week. Please. I walked out in a daze, barely registering Rosa's concerned look as I gathered my things. My phone buzzed. Natalie. You okay? She asked. After last night. Matthews just put me on leave. Apparently, there are rumors about Caleb at the university. A pause. What kind of rumors? I don't know. But I'm meeting his former student in 2 hours. Want to bet they're connected? Want backup? No. I need to do this alone. Being there was quiet when I arrived, just a few students hunched over laptops. I ordered coffee and claimed a corner table, watching the door. At exactly noon, she walked in. Jasmine was younger than I'd expected. Pretty, in that fresh-faced way that made me feel ancient. She clutched her bag like a shield as she approached. Mrs. Thompson. Her voice trembled slightly. Thank you for meeting me. It's just Vera now. Sit. She perched on the edge of her chair, fingers twisting the strap of her bag. I don't know where to start. How about with why my husband left? He found out we were going to come forward. All of us. Ice spread through my chest. All of who? The girls. The ones he. She swallowed hard. It started my sophomore year. He was my advisor. He said I had potential, that he could help my career. Then came the private meetings, the late-night emails, the suggestions that certain arrangements could help my grades. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. How many? 7 that I know of. Maybe more. She reached into her bag, pulled out a manila envelope. We have proof. Emails, texts, photos. We were going to take it to the board today, but he must have found out somehow. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Screenshots of messages, each more damning than the last. Photos of Caleb with different young women, his hand always somewhere it shouldn't be. Dates spanning years. Years we were married. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because we need your help. She leaned forward, voice dropping. He's not just hiding, Mrs. Thompson. He's starting over. Building something new. Something dangerous. What do you mean? He's gathering followers. Vulnerable students, mostly. Calling it a spiritual retreat or something. But it's just another way to control people. She pulled out her phone, showed me a website. See? He's already got dozens of people believing his enlightenment bullshit. I stared at the screen, at Caleb's serene smile below the header, Finding Truth Through Solitude, a Journey of Self-Discovery. Son of a bitch, I whispered. We can stop him. But we need someone he won't expect. Someone who knows him better than anyone. Her eyes met mine. Will you help us? I thought about the post-it note, about 15 years of lies. About 7 young women whose lives he'd tried to destroy. Yes, I said. I'll help you destroy him. The other women gathered in Natalie's living room, their faces a gallery of shared trauma. 6 besides Jasmine, just like she'd said. Young, bright, broken. Each clutching their own manila envelope of evidence against my husband. He always chose the quiet ones, Sarah, a grad student, explained. The ones who needed recommendations, who couldn't afford to lose their scholarships. I paced behind Natalie's couch, the weight of their stories pressing against my chest. And none of you went to the administration. 2 did, Jasmine said. Remember Angela Martinez? The name hit like a slap. The student who had a mental breakdown last year. She tried to report him. Next thing we knew, she was accused of plagiarism. Lost her scholarship, her graduate position, everything. My hands shook as I poured more wine. And the other one? Me, a redhead, Rachel, whispered. He had photos. Said he'd release them if I didn't withdraw my complaint. The doorbell rang. Natalie answered it, returning with Eli. His police uniform was wrinkled, his face tight with concern. Our eyes met across the room, and something in his expression made my stomach drop. We need to talk, he said quietly. Alone. In Natalie's kitchen, he pulled out his phone. Remember that wellness check you asked me to run on Caleb's retreat location? What about it? It's not just a retreat. He showed me a police report. 3 women have gone missing in that area in the past month. All former students. Jesus Christ. The room spun slightly. You think he's... I think he's escalating. The university board meeting spooked him. He's gathering followers, yes, but he's also targeting specific women. Women who could expose him. A text buzzed on my phone. Unknown number. I know what you're planning, Vera. Stop now, or Angela won't be the only cautionary tale. I showed Eli the message. His jaw tightened. He's watching us, I said. Let him. Eli's voice was steel. We can use that. Back in the living room, the women fell silent, watching us. Their fear was palpable, a living thing that filled the room. Change of plans, I announced. We're not just exposing him. We're taking him down. Tonight. Jasmine stood. What do you mean? He's threatening you all through me. But he's made a mistake. I held up my phone. He's given us proof of witness intimidation. And with 7 testimonies, plus evidence. 8, a quiet voice said from the doorway. We turned. Rosa stood there, clutching her own manila envelope. Rosa. My voice cracked. You? 15 years ago. When he was just starting at the university. She stepped forward, shoulders straight. I was his teaching assistant. He destroyed my career before it began. Made sure I'd never teach. The pieces clicked. Rosa's bitterness, her protectiveness of young female patients, her sharp edges. That's why you've always watched out for the interns, I whispered. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I couldn't stop him then. But I can help stop him now. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Last warning, Vera. Walk away, or watch them all burn. I looked around the room, at these women who'd carried their pain in silence for so long. At Rosa, who'd been protecting others while hiding her own scars. At Eli, whose face promised justice. He wants us afraid, I said. Isolated. But together. Together we're stronger than his threats. What's the plan? Sarah asked. I smiled, a cold thing that felt foreign on my face. We give him exactly what he wants, me, alone, coming to beg forgiveness. Except I won't be alone. And there won't be any forgiveness. Eli touched my arm. Vera. No. He thinks he knows me, the quiet, supportive wife. The one who'll keep his secrets. I met each woman's eyes in turn. Let's show him how wrong he is. My phone buzzed one final time. I didn't need to look to know it was him, trying to maintain control. But control, like everything else, was about to slip through his fingers. Ladies, I said, let's go destroy my husband. Eli spread the surveillance photos across his kitchen table while Lucas napped in the next room. The retreat compound sprawled across 20 acres of woodland, a collection of cabins surrounding a main lodge. In every image, young women moved between buildings like sleepwalkers, their faces vacant. They're not prisoners, Eli said, at least not technically. They're there voluntarily. Brainwashed, I corrected, studying a photo of Caleb leading what appeared to be a meditation session. How many? 23 residents. All women, all under 30. He hesitated. And Angela Martinez is there. My head snapped up. The student who tried to report him. She's alive. Barely functioning, according to our informant. He's got them all on some strict regimen, meditation, fasting, isolation periods. Classic cult tactics. A soft cry came from Lucas's room. Eli moved to get up, but I touched his arm. I'll go. In the dim nursery, Lucas reached for me from his crib, tear-streaked face breaking my heart. I lifted him, breathing in his baby-sweet scent, remembering how Caleb had reacted when I'd suggested having children. Too much responsibility, he'd said. We need to focus on my career. Now I understood why. My phone vibrated, a text from Greg, Caleb's former mentor, need to talk. Urgent. Meet me at the university library. Eli, I called softly. Can you watch Lucas? Something's come up. Greg waited in the rare books section, looking older than I remembered. His hands trembled as he pulled out a leather-bound journal. I found this in my office, he said. It's from 1997, when Caleb was my graduate assistant. I opened it. Pages of neat handwriting detailed research subjects, female students, their vulnerabilities, their pressure points. Rosa's name appeared early on. He was perfecting his technique, I whispered. Even then. I should have seen it. Greg's voice cracked. But he was brilliant, charismatic. I thought. He stopped abruptly, eyes fixing on something behind me. I turned. A campus security guard stood there, radio in hand. Professor Thompson, he said. You're in violation of the restraining order. What restraining order? The one your husband filed this morning. You need to come with me. Greg stepped forward. There must be some mistake. It's okay, I said, clutching the journal. Call Eli. Tell him what happened. At the campus police station, Officer Chen slid a document across her desk. The restraining order cited erratic behavior and threatening communications. Attached were screenshots of texts I'd never sent. Emails I'd never written. He fabricated these, I said. Maybe so, Chen replied, but until a judge says otherwise, you can't come within 500 feet of him or the retreat property. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Checkmate, darling. Did you really think I wouldn't be prepared? See. Another buzz. A photo appeared, Lucas's empty crib, taken minutes ago. My blood froze. I need to make a call. In the hallway, I dialed Eli with shaking fingers. No answer. Then Natalie. Nothing. A final text from Caleb, you have a choice, Vera. Drop everything, the accusations, the evidence, all of it, or you'll never see our godson again. You have 1 hour. I stared at the words until they blurred. Caleb had always been 3 steps ahead, always calculating. But he'd made one crucial mistake. Lucas wasn't just my godson. He was my reason for ensuring Caleb could never hurt anyone again. I dialed Rosa's number. It's happening, I said when she answered. Plan B. Call the others. And Rosa. Make sure Sarah brings those files from the university's security system. What about Lucas? I thought of those vacant-faced women in the surveillance photos. Of Angela Martinez, trapped in Caleb's web. Of Rosa, carrying her scars for 15 years. He thinks he's taking everything from me, I said. Let's show him what it really means to lose everything. I hung up and walked back to Officer Chen's desk, forcing my voice to stay steady. I'd like to report a kidnapping. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The retreat's main lodge loomed before me, all rustic wood and false serenity. 2 of Caleb's followers, seekers, he called them, flanked me as I climbed the steps. Their grip on my arms was gentle but firm, a perfect metaphor for his whole operation. Sister Vera, one murmured, he's waiting in the meditation room. Of course he was. Everything choreographed, just like always. Through the windows, I caught glimpses of women in white linen, moving like ghosts between buildings. Angela Martinez sat cross-legged in the garden, staring at nothing. My hand tightened around Greg's journal in my pocket. The meditation room door opened. Caleb stood there, backlit like some cut-rate messiah. Darling, he said, spreading his arms. Welcome home. Where's Lucas? Safe. With Natalie. His smile didn't reach his eyes. She's quite receptive to our teachings, actually. Amazing what a few carefully chosen words can accomplish. The implications hit like a punch. Natalie wasn't answering calls because she was here, under his influence. Just like Angela. Just like all of them. Your choice, he prompted. I want to see Lucas first. After you surrender the evidence. All of it. A commotion outside drew his attention. Through the window, I saw Greg stumbling up the path, looking desperate. Right on schedule. What's he doing here? Caleb's mask slipped slightly. Probably looking for his journal. I pulled it from my pocket. Interesting reading. Very. Methodical. His eyes narrowed. Give it to me. Everything you've built here, it's just a larger version of what you did to Rosa, isn't it? Find the vulnerable ones, isolate them, make them dependent. I'm helping them find purpose. Like you helped Angela find purpose. Something dark flashed across his face. She was unstable. They all were, until I showed them the path. The path to what? Being your personal cult. Watch your tone. His voice dropped dangerously. Remember who has the power here. A woman's scream pierced the air. We both turned. In the garden, Rosa stood over Angela's crumpled form. Help! Rosa shouted. She's not breathing. Caleb moved toward the door. I blocked his path. Your choice, I echoed his words. Let me see Lucas, or I start making phone calls. The police are already watching this place. One word from me. You're bluffing. Try me. More commotion outside. Greg had reached the garden, was kneeling beside Angela. Other women gathered, their program's serenity cracking. Tick-tock, I said. Caleb's jaw clenched. Follow me. He led me to a cabin at the compound's edge. Inside, Natalie sat with Lucas, her eyes glazed but clearing slightly at my entrance. Vera. She blinked rapidly. What's happening? It's okay, I said, not taking my eyes off Caleb. Everything's going to be okay. Lucas reached for me. I took him, breathing in his familiar scent. Now the evidence, Caleb demanded. I smiled. Check your phone. He pulled it out, face darkening as messages flooded in. Every woman he'd ever manipulated, every piece of evidence we'd gathered, being sent to the university board, the police, the media. All time-stamped for automatic release unless I entered a code every hour. You can't. I already did. I backed toward the door with Lucas. Angela's fine, by the way. Just a little acting from Rosa. But the police response time to a medical emergency. About 3 minutes. Sirens wailed in the distance. You're just like them, he snarled. Weak, needing guidance. No, Caleb. I'm exactly what you made me, someone who learned to play the long game. His followers were emerging from their trances now, watching through windows as police cars appeared on the horizon. Natalie, I called softly. Time to go home. She stood shakily, moving toward us as Caleb's carefully constructed world began to crumble around him. This isn't over, he warned. You're right. I shifted Lucas to my hip. It's just beginning. The first police car crested the hill as we walked away, leaving Caleb to face the storm he'd created, one calculated manipulation at a time. The interrogation room's fluorescent lights made everything look sickly, unreal. Detective Martinez, no relation to Angela, placed a stack of photos in front of me. Crime scene images from the retreat. 3 bodies, he said flatly. Found buried behind the meditation cabin. All former students. My stomach lurched. That's impossible. We were watching him. For 6 weeks. These deaths date back 2 years. He slid forward another photo, Caleb being led away in handcuffs, that serene smile still on his face. Your husband's looking at multiple homicide charges. And you? You're looking at obstruction of justice. I was trying to help those women. By running a vigilante operation. By interfering with an ongoing investigation. He leaned forward. We've been building this case for months. Your little revenge scheme nearly destroyed years of work. The door opened. Eli stepped in, still in uniform. His face was carved from stone. They're processing Natalie now, he said quietly. The drugs in her system. She's not doing well. I closed my eyes. Lucas. Safe. With my sister. He wouldn't look at me. The department's reviewing my involvement. I'll probably lose my badge. Eli, I never meant. Save it. His voice cracked slightly. You used me. Used my position to get information. Put our son at risk. He was never in danger. No. He finally met my gaze. You brought a 3-year-old into a compound where women were being murdered. Where your best friend was being drugged. All for what? To prove you weren't as blind as everyone thought. To show Caleb you could play his game. The truth hit like a physical blow. I had become exactly what I was fighting against, someone so focused on control, on winning, that I'd lost sight of the casualties. Detective Martinez cleared his throat. Dr. Matthews called. The dental clinic's board is meeting tomorrow about your license. Of course. My whole life, unraveling thread by thread. I want to see him, I said. Your husband. Not happening. Please. I need to understand. Understand what? Eli's voice was ice. How he manipulated people. Destroyed lives. Look in a mirror, Vera. You're more like him than you think. He walked out, leaving me with the photos of 3 women I'd never known existed. 3 women I might have saved if I'd gone to the police instead of playing detective. My phone buzzed, they hadn't confiscated it yet. A text from Rosa, Angela's talking. Really talking. Says there are more bodies. Another buzz. An email from the university board, announcing a formal investigation into Greg's involvement. His career, destroyed because I'd dragged him into this. The final message was from an unknown number. A video link. With trembling fingers, I opened it. Caleb's face filled the screen, recorded before his arrest. Hello, darling. If you're watching this, everything has gone according to plan. You always were predictable, so desperate to prove yourself, to show everyone you weren't just the quiet, supportive wife. Did you enjoy playing detective? Making your little charts and gathering your evidence? His smile widened. Thank you for finding those bodies for me. I was getting worried they'd never be discovered. And now? Now everyone sees you exactly as I always did, reckless, obsessed, dangerous. Just like me. The video ended. Detective Martinez watched me with a mixture of pity and disgust. We'll need your formal statement, he said. About everything. I stared at the photos of the dead women, at my distorted reflection in the interrogation room window. Caleb was right. I'd become exactly what he wanted, a mirror of his own obsession, his own capacity for destruction. I'll tell you everything, I whispered. About the bodies, the manipulation, all of it. But first, I need you to understand something. What's that? There's one more secret. One he thinks only he knows. I met the detective's eyes. And it's going to destroy him completely. Because Caleb had taught me well, too well. He'd shown me that the best revenge isn't quick or clean. It's patient. Methodical. And most importantly, it's devastating. Just like the truth I'd been saving for exactly this moment. The prison visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. Caleb sat across from me, orange jumpsuit stark against his pale skin, that familiar serene smile still in place. Come to gloat, darling. I placed Greg's journal on the table between us. No. I came to return this. His eyes flickered to the leather-bound book. Ah. My early work. Quite amateur, looking back. 3 bodies wasn't amateur. 4, actually. His smile widened slightly. But you knew that already, didn't you? I slid a photograph across the table. A younger Caleb, standing beside a woman with my face, my build, my coloring. My sister, I said quietly. The one who disappeared 15 years ago. The reason I applied to work at your university's dental clinic. The smile faltered, just for a moment. You never wondered why I looked so familiar. My voice remained steady. Why I worked so hard to get your attention. To become exactly the kind of quiet, supportive wife you wanted. Vera. Sarah was her name. But you knew her as Patient Zero in your journal. Your first experiment in control. His hands, always so steady, began to tremble slightly. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Sarah kept records too. Hidden where you'd never think to look, in her dental records. X-rays with dates, photos of injuries, detailed notes about her accidents. All safely stored in the university clinic's archive. That's why you became a dental hygienist. 15 years of waiting. Watching. Learning how you operate. I leaned forward. Did you really think I was just another victim, Caleb? That I didn't plan every step, including my own revenge-obsessed spiral? Detective Martinez entered quietly, standing by the door. The FBI's reopening 20 cold cases, I continued. All women who matched Sarah's description, all connected to universities where you taught. And guess what they found in that journal? DNA. Hair samples. Trophies. Caleb's facade cracked. You're lying. You taught me well, how to manipulate, how to play the long game. The difference is, I had a better reason. I stood. The detective has some questions about Sarah. And the others? They'll never believe you, he snarled. You're unstable, obsessed. No, I'm patient. Like you said in your video message, predictable. You just predicted the wrong pattern. His composure shattered completely. He lunged across the table, hands reaching for my throat. Guards rushed in, restraining him as he screamed accusations, threats, confessions. I watched him break, 15 years of careful planning culminating in this moment. Detective Martinez touched my arm. We got it all on camera, he said softly. The confession, the assault. It's over. In the hallway, Eli waited with Lucas. His face was softer now, understanding replacing judgment. You could have told me, he said. I needed your genuine reactions. Everyone's genuine reactions. It was the only way to make him believe he was winning. Lucas reached for me. I took him, holding him close. The department cleared you, Eli continued. And me. They're calling it an unofficial undercover operation. And Natalie? Home from the hospital. Rosa's with her. He hesitated. She understands why you couldn't warn her. They all do. I thought of Sarah, of all the women who'd never gotten justice. Of the careful path I'd walked between revenge and redemption. What happens now? Eli asked. Through the window, I could see Caleb being led away, his shoulders hunched, his power finally broken. In his journal, he'd written that true control comes from making others see themselves through your eyes. He was right about that. He just never realized he wasn't the only one watching. Now. I kissed Lucas's forehead. Now we go home. And we live. Behind us, Caleb's screams echoed down the corridor, but they held no power anymore. Just the impotent rage of a man who'd finally discovered what it meant to be truly, completely controlled. Sarah would have appreciated the irony. The letter arrived on Sarah's birthday. Prison stationery, Caleb's precise handwriting. I carried it unopened to the cemetery, where fresh flowers marked my sister's finally discovered grave. Natalie found me there, sitting cross-legged on the grass. She looked better, clearer, stronger. The retreat's fog had lifted from her eyes. Rosa said you might be here. She settled beside me. That his? I nodded, turning the envelope over in my hands. You don't have to read it. I know. But I did. One last move in our long game. The paper crackled as I unfolded it. Vera. You were right about one thing, I did recognize you. Not at first, but gradually. Something in the way you watched me, calculated every move. Sarah had that same intensity. I wondered when you'd make your move. 15 years of waiting, watching. I should have recognized the patience of a predator rather than prey. You asked me once why I chose you. The truth is, you chose me. You crafted yourself into my perfect match, knowing I couldn't resist. In doing so, you became exactly what you claimed to hate, a manipulator, a destroyer of lives. We're the same now, you and I. Remember that when you're lying awake at night, telling yourself you did it all for justice. See? Natalie touched my hand. You okay? I let the letter fall onto Sarah's grave, watching the wind catch it. He still thinks this was about revenge. Wasn't it? No. I stood, brushing grass from my jeans. It was about stopping him. Sarah was just the beginning, I had to make sure she was the end, too. My phone buzzed. A text from Eli, Angela's group therapy session went well. She asked about you. Another buzz, Rosa. Jasmine aced her dental boards. We're celebrating at O'Malley's. Coming. They're healing, Natalie said softly. All of them. Because of you. Because of themselves. I looked at Sarah's headstone, at the dates that finally told her complete story. I just helped them find their way back. And what about you? Are you healing? The wind picked up, scattering the letter's pieces like confetti. Somewhere across town, Lucas was probably helping Eli make dinner, standing on his little stool to reach the counter. Later, we'd read stories and talk about his day at preschool, normal moments that felt miraculous after everything. I thought catching him would feel like winning, I said. Like some grand victory. But it just feels quiet. Yeah. I touched Sarah's headstone. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm. Speaking of quiet. Natalie hesitated. Greg called. They're releasing his memoir next month. The whole story, how Caleb manipulated him, how he unknowingly enabled everything. Good. People need to understand how it happens. How someone like Caleb finds the cracks in your life and widens them until you fall through. We walked back to our cars, leaving Sarah's grave and Caleb's scattered words behind. The setting sun painted everything in soft gold, making the world look newer than it was. You never told me, Natalie said as we reached the parking lot. That last secret you mentioned to Detective Martinez, the one that would destroy Caleb completely. What was it? I smiled, thinking of Caleb's face in that prison visiting room, of the moment he realized the truth. There was no secret. I just needed him to think there was, to keep him off balance until he confessed. I unlocked my car. His biggest fear was always that someone else held power over him. So I gave him that fear, let it eat away at him until he cracked. Just like he did to others. Just like that. Natalie hugged me goodbye, and I drove home to my family, to the life I'd built while planning Caleb's destruction. He was right about one thing, I had become like him in some ways. I'd learned to manipulate, to calculate, to wait. But he'd missed the crucial difference, I'd done it all so I could stop being like him. So I could finally lay down the weapon of revenge and pick up something lighter, something that felt more like peace. Even if that peace still echoed, sometimes, with the sound of storms.